a star from at a help desk is
Thinking 3 steps ahead, designing for failure, building resilience is how I shape myself.
mind-blowing.
LinkedIn is all flooded with a lot of stuff on AI. But how much can that be adopted and across which industry? The pace at which AI is continuing to mature, that's really fast.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Control Shifter, a podcast by SmartDev and Vericel AI featuring voices that take control and drive the shift. So today we are diving into a world most of us experience every day but rarely think about, the tech behind banking. And joining me is someone who's been in the thick of it, which is Avijit Macker, 2 decades deep in financial services, from core infrastructure at Barclays to leading transformation at Standard Chartered in more than a decade, I think. And now he's pushing deeper into and machine learning academic degrees, which is very fantastic. Avijit, once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure. So before we get into it, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Thank you. Thank you, Maddie, for having me in this podcast. I'm extremely honored. So yeah, let's get it rolling.
Okay, that's great. So now let's rewind a bit. So you started out at a help desk, right? That's a long way from where you are today. So what part of that early experience still shape how you lead teams like you're today?
Yeah, I'm glad to share that. My journey, as you rightly stated, started at the help desk in GE. And those early years taught me humility, responsiveness, and a user first mindset. Managing databases at Barclays later exposed me to the sheer criticality of uptime in banking and where minutes of downtime could ripple into millions of losses. That rigor, thinking 3 steps ahead, designing for failure, building resilience is how I shape myself now and lead teams and approach problems. Yeah. So I think those days way back in General Electrics to Barclays to Standard Chartered and now at StratAgile is have really set the stones for myself for my career.
A star from at a help desk is really impressive to hear, and now you turn into the leaders in the space. And during your 2 decades journey in financial services and banking industry, what gets you most excited about the work you've been doing?
Honestly, what excites me is how we have helped financial institutions move from legacy tech debt to intelligent data driven platforms. And that's been all about my last 2 decades. We've just not optimized for performance, we've reimagined how trust, transparency, and user experiences are delivered through tech. Every day is about enabling reliability at scale while exploring how AI and decentralization might define what's possible in the next decade.
I would say AI and decentralization is a technology play a role in such a highly regulated industry like finance. When talking about this, I feel like we're not building tech anymore. We're building behavior within the team, right? Because this space is really highly regulated and take time to adapt to these digital transformation. All right, I think it's good to go into some meat about what you've been doing throughout your career now. So you've been part of these huge DevOps and cloud transformations. Can you walk us through some of the story of your full journeys, like from first step to the actual business impact?
Yeah, I'll be glad to share that. I mean, those were some of the most exciting days in my career. I'll just walk you through what we did at Standard Chartered Bank. At Standard Chartered, one of our key missions was to reduce the service downtime and increase the delivery velocity. We moved workloads to the cloud, rolled out observability with stacks like AppDynamics, Dynatrace, ITRS, and created some visually client-centric intuitive dashboards with some real-time alerting. These tools, as I said, were really visually stunning and provided guidance to our frontline staff at branches, contact center, and to the backend staff at operations, nerve center, and business heads, specifically the product owners. This enabled transparency and equipped quick actions and responses across our digital assets. In a scenario where we have a problem, we wanted to be sure that we should know it before our customers do. And this also enabled our frontline staff to be ready with script and empowered them to keep those scripts available across our digital assets. I mean, these were the initial days and they were really of reactive firefighting. Next was the predictive monitoring and leveraging on the power of supervised machine learning and AI. This transition and drive led to a 70% reduction in incident volumes and faster root cause analysis, something which the regulators loved. This also helped us enable for quicker releases, fewer production rollbacks, and the best part, our NPS, Net Promoter Score, really went up. So I think it was really exciting how we went from those reactive firefighting days to really a predictive set of getting to know that we're going to have an incident and empowering our frontline staff to be ready just in case we have a negative incident.
Okay, so I think that's awesome. You brought a strong impact in both operation side and also customer facing side, like spotting the signal earlier and address the threat accordingly rather than just saw the threat happen, bad things happen, then to address it later. And I would say 70% reduction in incident and improving net promoter score. That's a really impressive metric that you've been achieved. So you've been deploy advanced monitoring stack like Dynatrace and ITRS. Maybe you can explain a bit what are those stacks to our audience who are not familiar in this field. Are those stacks are common tools dedicated for this finance industry, or is your team solution after going the whole process of problem analysis to driving change initiatives?
Truly. It's something which is very close to my heart. It's the service reliant concepts, yeah. So, man, they were really the game changers. Stacks like Dynatrace, App Dynamics, ITRS, they gave us some real time insights when we designed them and deployed them for our business and for our frontline staff. They had the AI driven root cause detection. ITRS specifically, that allowed us to do work on some of the visual complex data flows between heterogeneous systems. As you know, core banking, mobile banking, wealth management systems, ADMs, you know it or name it, right? They've been built over the years. They are really legacy, and how data flows across these systems and the systems which make up these products, that can be really complex. So, in order to detect where the problem is, how do you make sure, or how do you intuitively make them visually attractive to people to understand where the real problem lies? That was one of the biggest achievement, I would say, that we achieved through these products. Together, they enabled a cultural shift to from what broke, what's about to break, and finally the end goal, build to last. That proactive posture actually helped us improve our SLA, Net Promoter Score, digital sales, and most importantly, the confidence with business stakeholders and clients to remove friction. And I think that was our biggest win in getting that investment into tech, which helped us pave the way forward for investments in machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud, DevOps, MLOps, you name it. So the real concepts, I would say, in service reliability and engineering, service management helped us pave the way for actual service delivery. I believe that all of these implementations, not just simply building dashboard for dashboard's sake, like is giving visibility for everyone in the whole team, from tech team to the business team, and seeing all of those data, what is going on, and enable them to act accordingly. So yeah, obviously build a whole new level of confidence, as you mentioned. Obviously, banking is super regulated, right? So you're moving fast, but there's compliance, audits, data privacies that require this industry takes a lot of time for transformation. So how do you keep that balance? Okay, so I was just talking about stacks like Dynatrace, App Dynamics, ITRS, working on visualizing complex data flows between heterogeneous systems. Some of these systems are monolithic, old legacy, tech debt, and, specifically core banking, payment engine, mobile banking, wealth management systems. So what these stacks helped us was actually enabled us actually for a cultural shift from what broke to what's about to break, and finally the end goal, built to last. And that proactive posture actually improved our SLAs and NPS, digital sales, and more importantly, the confidence with business stakeholders and remove friction for our end customers. Back to the point that banking has always been a super regulated field, and you're moving fast, but there's still the headaches, which is compliance, audits, data privacy that require this field take a lot of time for transformation. So how do you keep that balance and modernization while still satisfying the auditors? Great question, Maddie. I must say, I think you've really hit the hammer on the nail, really. This was one of the biggest challenge, the audits and the inspections, the audits, internal and external audits, and the inspections from regulators. And we've learned the hard way actually over the years. What we embraced was the embedding of compliance into the DevSecOps pipeline. Instead of where we were, like the audits and governance as afterthoughts, we actually built them in our CI CD pipeline. This actually meant the policies were codified, tested, and versioned just like code. Continuous upliftment of our platforms and keeping them really secure from design perspective was one aspect. However, the parallel programs that we onboarded to remediate and secure the critical infrastructure was done hand in hand. Programs like patching, obsolescence, remediation, and I must say, the continuous uplift of IAM policies were regularly revisited and revised to be updated. And a key takeaway and learning was also to work with our partners and make sure that our outsourcing arrangement, and by the way, specifically in a market like Singapore, outsourcing is given a lot of importance because specifically for banks, because they have access to some of the most sensitive data from client perspective. So the whole idea was that our partners via the outsourcing arrangement, the regulation was robust and that our partners understood the importance of cyber and risk management hygiene. The net result, as you say, from headache, it helped us move faster, not leaving the regulators behind.
You've led pretty diverse tech team from database engineer, cloud folks, product managers. How do you approach getting such different profiles aligned, like having them motivated and moving in the same direction?
A great question. Again, something very close to my personality and how over the years I've learned, I've fallen down, and as you've rightly said, the most complex brains, the most complex personalities can be diverse cultures, and being sensitive to people, especially in a multicultural environment, in a multinational company, can be really tricky. But I think what's enabled and how I have evolved over the years is by keeping the goals straight. I mean, technicians can really have their technical ego, but aligning them to a shared purpose helps. Engineers, project managers, product owners, they all want to solve problems, but they need context. I invest a lot in storytelling, sharing them the big picture and the shared metrics. And this is just like a rhythmic ritual. Everyone from, in the past when I was with Barclays, working with database administrators, and at Standard Chartered, working with Scrum Masters, product owners at front end, they need to see how actually their work ties with customer trust, system resilience, and revenue. Overall, bringing them all together for that rhythmic ritual, for those weekly meetings, for those early celebrations, that actually helps build a lot of clarity. Putting everyone's heart, their head into that shared value and shared purpose really was the key for me.
I've been working in marketing and some content marketing practices, and storytelling has always been the tactics that proven to be most effective. And in this case, you apply it in the technical context, as product management context, which is really mind blowing from my marketing perspective. So yeah, people really I would say underestimate how motivating it is when you connect the work to the real business impact. Honestly, getting traditional banking folks to adopt DevOps is not easy, right? So what leadership shift or mindsets help to get teams on board with the journey?
DevOps is just not about tools and processes. It is actually more about a cultural shift in how actually teams collaborate. And this shift can actually be very challenging in a traditional banking organization where silos, even today, they exist between development, operations, and security teams. They're pretty common. Teams that are used to, I would say, manual release cycles, long testing phases may resist adopting to DevOps practices like automation, CI/CD pipeline, infrastructure as a code. And this can actually, slow down the transition and cause a lot of friction. So I think, yeah, more than just getting into a training, getting certified, embracing DevOps, I think it's about the human mindset. My leadership style included a significant amount to work through that shared purpose. For example, pairing the traditional subject matter experts with really the cloud native engineers, running side by side the traditional change management runbooks with agile practices. It did help cross pollinate culture and thinking. To be perfectly honest with you, change doesn't happen through slides. It happens through trust. I focused on small wins, celebrated early adopters, and built a narrative of better for you, better together, and you must, link this together here for good.
That's a really great story to tell because you spent more than a decade in there, and I believe that play taught you a lot, and also you gain a lot. You work with all of the best people in there, and you know, bringing them up is makes sense, right? So I believe now is more on human change rather than just process change. I mean, human change here is not replacing employees, but focusing on the way they work, collaborate with each other, help them upskilling, and maybe there's some cultural change in that, as you always emphasize. And most of all, we're going to build trust first before you ask people to change the way they work. And I think that's very some insightful piece. Behind the scene here is when we were preparing for this podcast yesterday, Avijit was deep in his AI machine learning exam. What made you go back to the academic side after already having such deep experience in the field?
Yeah, pretty interesting, right? I'm a technologist deep at heart, and you can't pace up with technology unless you pace your learning along with it. Tech involves fast. And I just didn't want to read about AI in McKinsey reports. I really wanted to build, experiment, and truly understand how machine learning models, how AI models learn, where they deviate, hallucinate. And I think these are really the risks and challenges today with machine learning and AI. How do we optimize loss functions and apply them responsibly in institutions, and specifically banking, where you're actually dealing with a lot of client data? And this client data may be anywhere across geographies, on cloud, on prem. The coursework at IIT Kanpur challenges my assumptions and sharpens my ability. And as you rightly said, yesterday was my end semester exam in machine learning. And I just wanted my ability to evolve to separate the hype from real value. LinkedIn is all flooded with a lot of stuff on AI, but how much can that be adopted and at across which industry? There's healthcare, there's manufacturing, there is banking, there's hospitality and gaming. Not everywhere you can have agentic AIs and MCP rolled out. And I think the pace at which AI is continuing to mature, that's really fast. The real practicality of implementing some of these products in banking, and I must say, especially where explainability and transparency is key for clients and regulators, that is most important. So I think the course is actually really helping me. I am almost at the tail end of completing my masters, and I really look forward for having them, implement them across industries, not specifically in BFSI. Healthcare is a newfound love for me, and I wish I get some opportunities to really put the frameworks, the learnings that I've had at the institution across and develop some meaningful products.
This will be a topic that everyone is really care about. And I can say how excited you are, how passionate you are when learning this. I just want to say that I admire this curiosity of yours, the motivation of learning of yours, which is really cool. Now you are in your front row seat in this field, right? So how do you think AI is going to most realistically impact banking operations and customer experience over the next few years?
A lot has been said about how AI will impact banking organizations and operations. I just don't want to, talk about content which is already there, but let me just say that AI will and has already reshaped both front and back office, specifically on the banking side. On the ops side, it has and continues to automate reconciliation, fraud detection, and compliance monitoring. And I think those are some of the key areas where specifically we need AI to augment some of the human strength that we had, specifically in fraud detection. Because along with AI, fraud detection also, fraud actually continues to evolve. And again, it's only AI that can beat AI. So fraud detection is something that is really close to my heart. And specifically, you mentioned about marketing. So I think for clients, we'll see hyper personalized journeys driven by behavior prediction and not like segmentation, client segmentation. This is already happening in many areas. But as we all know, AI continues to grow. The adoption, again, and it's really important, and I emphasize a lot on that, is should be paired with explainability and strong governance. And that's really the key for banking. Personally, what I feel, the black box modeling, explainability, and that's really important for our regulators as well.
Okay, so I think that fraud detection is for on the operation side, for personal hyper-personalized journeys on the customer side. I really like that you clarified out regarding prediction instead of just segmentation, because honestly, what we've go been going through now is still relies on segmentation, right? We create a group based on their interest, behavior, past clicks, and then we create ads and target them. So even for social media, algorithm today works. So they're just ranking what you see based on your previous activity, but not really predicting. That's why I'm really excited about the advent of AI and machine learning, because it can create a thing called hyper-personalization, as you said. But at the same time, it's not about segmentation is going to go away. But AI can be a layer that add to that and maybe have the personalization becoming better and turn into hyper personalization. So you look into blockchain, CBDC, which is central bank digital currency. What is your take on how that plays into the future of banking?
Yeah, I mean, enterprise blockchain has and will find its niche, especially in trade finance. We've seen it in the last decade how blockchain is actually helping manage fraud in trade finance and interbank settlements. I mean, CBDCs, as you've rightly said, yeah, it's picking up strength, and specifically, with digital currencies across China and Nigeria, and now more about in the Middle East, actually between Saudi and UAE, it's actually continued to build up. I mean, it's more about programmable trust. CBDCs, I'll tell you, will be much more faster, will include financial inclusion. They will be auditable, and the disbursements will have embedded logic. But with every new tech that evolves, privacy, scalability, and legal frameworks must evolve in tandem. And that's really key, specifically for a highly regulated financial industry in region, and especially there is cross-border transfer of money, legal frameworks should exist, and they continue to evolve along with whatever technology that we are embracing, which involves people's assets and money.
Yeah, totally agree that programmable trust versus all of the hype around coins. I have a colleague, he want to send the money from Vietnam to Belgium. It's really a lot, and the remittance fees as well also play a part of it. And he's saying something like with the future of crypto, it could help reduce many the amount of remittance fee and just all the transaction fees. So yeah, I think CBDCs could really redefine some backend process, but also on the customer side process if it's done right. But yeah, as you mentioned, governance and compliance has still always been the barrier. So what governance or risk factors do you think banks absolutely can't ignore as they adopt these technology, crypto, blockchain, AI?
To have that governance, leadership maturity is quite key. I mean, with AI and crypto, the technology we are witnessing is cutting edge, but the foundational risks are really very real. Where trust is everything, specifically in banking and financial industries, organizations can't afford to overlook the governance and risk factors. And some of these risks, if I think about it, that comes to my mind, specifically in AI world, is the model bias and black box algorithms. AI is growing, and banks are investing in fairness, testing, robust audit trails, and continuous model monitoring. And mind you, if they're not, and I think this is really the time as they continue to embrace, there needs to be a framework which should involve fairness in testing and audit trails. You can't just set and forget about ML models. Transparency, accountability should be baked into every layer. And this is what actually your clients do appreciate. The regulators do want it. To give you some more context, AI models can inadvertently reinforce systemic biases. Now, what that means, let me give you an example of credit scoring. Now, credit scoring, if a model denies a loan based on biased historical data, it's just not unethical. It's a reputational risk and a regulatory one. Organizations, they need to mandate fairness in audits and transparent training data practices. The other which I mentioned about was explainability, which then brings you to accountability. Regulators now expect financial institutions to explain algorithmic decisions. If the AI model can't answer why, you are for sure in a dangerous territory. We need models that are not only performant, but also interpretable. And a lot of neural networks, unfortunately, because of the complexity involved, they give you results or predict results which are close to reality, but unfortunately you can't explain them because of the passes that are involved and the complexity between those nodes and neural networks. And this is really important why we don't deploy a lot of machine learning models which are neural network based across banking and financial industry. Then we've touched briefly about it on privacy and sovereignty of data. With AI, data is the fuel. It's the new fuel which banking data is actually sensitive to. Consent management, encryption standards, both at transit and rest, cross-border data handling. And I think Vietnam is a classic example, Mary. Vietnam, I think, mandates that the financial data cannot go beyond the geographical boundaries. So, especially with data now on cloud AI services, they must align with regional compliance frameworks, like specifically, your GDPR, PDPA, and DPDP. Then finally, the audit trails and model lifecycle management. And we touched upon it earlier on the DevOps part. So just like code and DevOps, AI models should follow machine learning ops, ML, and that comes with its own version control, approval workflows, monitoring in production, and specifically with rollback time. What I'm just talking about is service management and SREPs. It's not enough to validate a model at launch. Its performance must be continuously audited against real world data. And finally, let me just talk a little bit more about crypto. Right? In crypto, custody and compliance, and specifically in enterprise blockchains, we were talking early in corporate finance. Compliance are everything. Without KYC and AML boundaries, wallet custody, banks risk exposure to fraud, sanction breaches, and loss of customer funds. Smart contracts also need independent code audits because bugs in blockchain are permanent. I think I've said a lot about the risks, compliance, and all. But let me just tell you the bottom line. Organizations are just not building or should not build intelligent systems. We are engineering trust at scale. Governance isn't a barrier to innovation. It's the runway that leads it to land safely. And this is really close to my heart.
I mean, we shouldn't see it as a barrier, right? We should have it integrated in every operation step, every department of us to have our initiatives move forward. So actually, I've also recently, our podcast also pleasure to have a program manager at the car brand. So even though he's in a completely different industry, but it's also a kind of enterprise challenge. He also kind of adopting lots of enterprise changes. Besides continuous monitoring, as you said, data transparency, and ensure that the data is explainable. He also stating that embedded data governance and compliance into every step of the process and across every department is also very necessary. So I believe these practices like continuous monitoring, data governance, data and compliance has to be a part of every system DNA. So yeah, now I think let's look ahead. What's one trend that really energized you and what makes you a bit nervous regarding AI and all the emerging technology currently?
There are plenty of trends that have excited me, and I think it's quite a vast world with a lot of visibility across what's happening across tech industry. It's like the industrial revolution, if I must say. We're living through it right now with the AI. So I mean, it is growing at a much faster rate. I mean, I'll give you the example. The course I was doing, things that I'm learning is no longer relevant. Some of them are no longer relevant, and it's all AI and ML. But particularly, what's helping me is to embrace what's happening every day. And particularly, what I'm excited is about creating systems using RAG. I don't know if you've heard about this retrieval augmented generation.
Yes.
Those are the buzzwords today. And how do you then combine it with the model chaining protocol, the MCP, and the famous agentic AI to produce some products that can autonomously plan, reason, and collaborate? This is the next generation industrial revolution, which I was talking about. It's actually happening now. But, I'm so passionate about the compliance, the risk management. So I'm also cautious about data silos and model fragmentation. Now, I'm also cautious about how organizations are passionate about looking through some of these cutting edge technologies and embracing them in their own worlds. But the real challenge is, if every function starts to build their own black box solution using agentic AI, which is planning, reasoning, collaborating, and taking decisions, I think that's an area we need to be cautious about. We might risk ourselves losing that trust and coherence amongst our enterprise. And that's not good for any institutions. For banking, it's even more sensitive because we take care of a lot of about people's money and clients and their data. So I think, yeah, but I'm really keen to develop or work in a market which allows me to exploit and explore using a lot of RAG, MCP, and then work through agentic AIs.
That's great. So I would say fragmentation can kill trust very fast here. And the idea is agentic AI is super exciting. And I think we're already seeing these signs of this more and more because more people are now able to run their own business or agency because these AI agent can handle so many part of the process now and they can be surprisingly obedient as well. So do you think this is just a side questions. But if you think agentic AI get enhanced more and more and can solve all of the black box concerns, all of the fragmentation, do you think that you will have your own business doing your own thing with all the AI agent that can support you around? I'm just curious about the expert willingness when these things becoming more accessible, more mainstream.
I think, Mary, great question. And I would say, while too many early days in the banking world for agentic AI, because you would then think about agents actually taking decisions beyond the human mind, and that can be a very dangerous territory where financial decisions, let's say investments in markets, can be completely managed by agentic AI. And I think it's early days. While the science and the technology is quite interesting and has gained a lot of attention, personally just concerned about looking through my calendar and booking my air tickets autonomously, finding the best route and the best fare. That's what I want agentic AI personally from my educational backgrounds to help me, and that's what I'm actually working with personally along with my studies. And I think harnessing a lot of data within enterprises has helped seen a lot of productivity shifts, specifically at the front end and contact center, where agents actually rely through a lot of data and operating procedure as to what a client should actually do in case he's got his debit card or credit card blocked. And because there are so many products across credit card, there might be a different flow or a partner that he needs to engage it. So it's often very challenging. But with products like, let's say, an enterprise level bot, and again, I'm not talking about traditional bots that we've seen over the last decade, the one which is through LLMs and actually looking through a multiple websites within an organization, because they can be quite complex. Using the feature of RAG within an enterprise, these bots have become really intelligent and has helped reduce that friction of waiting, specifically the waiting of the client over the call, and give you really crisp answers. And of course, behind the scenes, the challenge of updating these websites is quite important and key for product owners, that they rely and that their information is reliant. And that's really the backbone. But I think, going back to what you're asking, yes, I'm quite excited. In the banking world, yes, it can augment a lot of human behavior. It can collaborate, but humans still, the investment advisors still need to be there to guide the client cautiously. Agents can actually not actually do stuff, but actually guide, inform about decisions which otherwise would have taken a few hours or days for investment advisors specifically to guide the client.
Totally agree. And I think it also really depends on the industry that we leverage these technology as well. All right. Very insightful. I learned a lot as well. So before we wrap, for anyone listening to this podcast who may be leading transformation inside a highly regulated environment, what is one advice you would give them?
I'd say, and I don't want to talk about technology. I'd talk,
Yes.
I would really think about a behavior, and I would say a value. Start with the trust. I mean, legacy systems are symptoms. What holds back any transformation is fear. Focus first on building bridges between business and technology, and also create a culture. And this is really important, where I'd say experimentation is safe. This will automatically break barriers, and your customers will be the first one to see that shift. So yeah, I'd say start with that trust.
I love that. Start with trust. After all, throughout your career, is there a mindset or principle that kept you grounded through all these way of change?
What I've seen, what I've witnessed, the progress isn't about perfection. It's about iteration with integrity. If you stay curious, listen deeply, and care about outcomes, the rest will automatically follow.
I mean, you're probably not just an expert in all of the technical things as people always describe it as dry, but you also understand a human, how to really interact with them, how to really guide them, how to really work with them. You have such a deep understanding to all the people that you're working with and has clear vision and how to drive them to move to the same goal, which is, I just love it so much. And it's a really good way to say integration with integrity, right? And okay, finally closing our podcast. If our listeners remember just one thing from this conversation about the future of finance, what would it be?
Future of finance. Yeah, I just want to keep it simple, right? In the previous organization that I worked, we always talked about a North Star. I mean, I personally believe that technology doesn't transform finance, but trust does. So the mantra is build systems that are resilient, transparent, and respectful of the people they serve. And that's really my guiding North Star.
It's beautifully said. Tech enables, but trust gonna help you transform it. So yeah, Avijit, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing not just but the big picture, but about the real story behind and how you navigate things. And I know a lot of listeners will take these insights straight back to their teams. So before we close, do you have any left comments or share with the audience listening to this podcast?
I must say thank you, Maddie. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Very insightful. The kind of conversation we had was really introspecting about what my journey has been so far, and I'm glad to share it with the audiences and yourself. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so listener, you've been listening to Control Shifter, where we talk with people who aren't just talking about technology shift, but they are making it real. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit follow so you don't miss the next one. And we got more tech builders and leaders coming your way. I'll see you next time.